So welcome to the second of our two programmes marking the end of the 2021 academic year at Queen's University. And we turn now to our next two guests, Peter Thompson, the manager of Queen's soccer team, and Mary Phillip, former England Lioness captain and the current manager of Peckham Town FC. And let me introduce you to both of them. Mary, you're very welcome. You're joining us from, I think, your home in South London today. How are you, Mary?
I'm very well, thank you.
And in the studio, I've got a friend and colleague, Peter Thompson. Peter, good afternoon. How are you?
Afternoon, Hugh. Afternoon, Mary.
So let's. I know we all haven't met before this afternoon, so let me do a few introductions for our audience. And I'm going to start with you, Mary, if that's okay. Now, I've had to write this out, Mary, because your playing record is astonishing. It's amazing. So you tell me if I get anything wrong here, Mary. 65 caps for England women from 96 to 2008. 4-year period in the middle of that where you took time off international football to start a family. 12 seasons at Millwall, 3 years at Fulham, 4 years at Arsenal, and a final year at Chelsea. Have I got that right, Mary?
Yeah, that's pretty much sums it up.
That is an amazing career. And then, Peter, when we look at what Mary's won, I have on my search over 20 trophies at Millwall.
No, at Millwall, well, we had little ones, but my main two trophies at Millwall was my League Cup and my FA Cup, was my first two major trophies in the women's game.
All right, so where are these other 20 trophies coming from, Mary?
They may have come from my Arsenal and Fulham days, but they definitely weren't my Millwall days.
And then you went on to captain. Do you know about Mary's career, Peter?
Yes, I remember Mary playing in the Women's FA Cup a few times, but it wasn't until I read that great article on the BBC about your life and linking it in with the challenges and the development of the women's game that I really got a picture for Mary. And I'm starting to actually think into myself a bit like the imposter syndrome here when I'm hearing Mary's career, and then I'm thinking back to my playing career. I'm like, goodness me, why am I here? But no, it was. I remember you playing as a centre back, and always impressed with you playing, and now your management career as well is starting to develop, and that piece on the BBC was very interesting indeed.
Mary, if we could you take us back to when you started? Because I read that you went to Millwall when you were 12 years of age. What was your journey into the Millwall senior team?
My journey was just before I joined Millwall. I was just throwing a football down the road with my friend, and we got spotted by a youth worker who invited us to come along and join her women's team just in Wandsworth, which was 2 miles away from where I live. So she had to come and speak to my parents, and they were willing for me to go up to Wandsworth twice a week and join a youth club and play football for this team on a Sunday. And it literally progressed from there. After a couple of years at the youth club, we got to the Anniversary Cup final, which we played against Arsenal. And obviously I've learnt that there are many women's teams out there. You had your Arsenal, Millwall, Crystal Palace, Everton, Doncaster Bells. And obviously I wanted to try and see what I could do in the game, and I wanted to join a women's established team. And then Millwall was around the corner from me. So obviously I got in touch with them.
Oh, and then while you were still at Millwall at 18, you're brought into the England setup, and you suddenly find yourself at I think the World Cup in 95 was in Sweden. What's your memories of that campaign?
Obviously we were having a fairly decent season at Millwall after a couple of years of actually going through relegation battles and not fighting to stay in the top flight. And obviously we had a few new players come through. Now, I wasn't a playing part of that squad, but I was a youngster coming through and actually having to look at what I could aspire to playing the game, and it was a great experience me being out there.
And was Hope Powell the manager at that time in that campaign?
No, Hope was a player.
She was a player, okay.
She was a player, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, Mary, you made that comeback seem very straightforward in the way you described it, but you were the mother of 2 young children. Was there pressure around you saying that you couldn't go back to full-time sport and that you couldn't go back into the game at the level you'd left it?
There was a lot of pressure around me. Obviously, I'd gone to the World Cup, and on my return back from the World Cup, I found out I was pregnant. And from that point, I was told, "You can't play football. That's it now. It's just going to be like motherhood." And not that I was not listening to people. I just didn't feel that motherhood was my only option. That I could have a child and still continue playing sport, and how to make things work for me. And that is what I managed to do. So, at the end of that year, I had my first child in '95. And I got myself back playing into the Millwall squad, and it was great because I had great support from my family and from the club itself. I was literally training up until I was like 8.5 months pregnant, doing simple stuff, the jogging stuff, the light ball work stuff, and the club was very appreciative for me being able to do that and staying with them doing that. And I 3 months after my child and getting myself back into full fitness, I was back playing for Millwall. And I've got to give big credit to my manager because it was my first away game over at Peckham Town, and he held my son for the whole game. Wow. And he cried for the whole game. He stopped at half time when I took him, and instead of taking me off the pitch, which I said that you can take me off the pitch, he said no, you can stay on the pitch. And that just gave me that confidence that I can play football and there are people around me to support me and back me. And obviously that just gave me that leg up to continue playing and push myself forward in our Millwall squad. And obviously my playing improved, and I managed to get back called up into the England squad through my playing at Millwall.
Wow. And then you went to, Peter and I were looking at this, you made history then by becoming a member of the first full-time professional women's team in English football when you went to Fulham. And was that around 2000, Mary?
Yeah, in 2000, Fulham, Hamdar Fayed, after going to the World Cup in America, decided that he wanted to, obviously alongside the Fulham men's team, create a professional women's team. And at the same time, the FA were actually talking about establishing a women's professional league in England. And so he put back into the club and he developed a professional women's side. And I was lucky to be selected, one of 16 women, both in England and European players, to be selected and play professionally for 3 years at Fulham. And they were safely 3 of the best years of me playing football.
Okay. So we want to come back to your career later in the interview, Mary, but you referred to the playing with Hope Powell and then being managed by her, and you're a manager now yourself, as you are, Peter. And we'll turn to Peter first, and then same question coming to you, Mary. Peter, what is it about managing that you enjoy the most?
Good question, Hugh. I ask myself that many times when the stresses of the season are in full flight. I love working with people. First and foremost. I also love developing people and seeing the work that myself and my coaching team do throughout the week manifest itself on a Saturday, and take great pride in seeing your team, and Mary probably say the same. There's a great pride when you see your team performing and kind of playing in the way that you have coached them and taught them to play, and not coach them to the nth of an inch of their life, but that creativity, but that freedom to express themselves, but within a context, within a framework of how you want to work. Of course, results are great when you win, that feeling of winning, but we're sports people. We know you don't win every week, especially if you're the manager of Queens, you don't win every week, certainly. But seeing the performances and seeing their development, not only as players, but as people as well, because I think we're privileged, myself and Mary, in our roles, that it's not just all football, Hugh. We invest our time with these young men as we have at the minute, and they're people. First and foremost, they're people. They're not players. They're people, and I think good managers first and foremost see players as people, that they have lives, that they have social lives, they have personal lives, they have problems just like everybody else, and getting that kind of that privileged position of helping them both, footballing wise, but also pastorally in their lives. It's a real privilege. I would say that's probably the main reason why I love being a manager.
Okay, Mary, you were telling us that you've been in Peckham Town in the Peckham Town role now for a couple of years, but it's been 2 very disrupted seasons. But what has given you the most pleasure during the last 2 years as a manager?
It's stepping up to the senior side of Peckham Town, because I've been involved with Peckham Town since 2000, from when I started my Fulham career, because I had a bit more time on my hands. And Peckham was starting a youth segment. So I was a part of that youth segment and started coaching the children from under 8. And that's for all the children who lived locally to us, who weren't able to get into your elite football teams like your Millwalls, your Crystal Palaces, your Fulhams. So we were like, for those who want to play who aren't getting into these teams, come along and join Peckham. And we built a youth side there. And obviously through the years, I just developed and worked through the under 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s. So I've worked through all of them. And I was doing the seniors, the under 18s at Peckham Town, which I'm still doing as well on a Sunday. And I was just doing my A licence. And so obviously I just asked, can I do some work with the reserve team and the first team? And the managers were like, yep, and the chairman, yep, that's fantastic. And when they were looking to build the first team and really try and push them to go that bit further within the club and within their playing segments, because they play step 7 within the football pyramid. Mm-hmm. And obviously they're aspiring for them to climb a little bit higher. So they just asked me if I would like to be manager of the first team. And I was like, it's my home team. I've been in Peckham. I've worked with them from the youth, worked with the youth side, and obviously the senior side was a good next step for me, especially having gained my A licence.
Okay. Peter and I were chatting before the interview started that you've had at least one experience where you've gone to the game as a manager and some people at the away grounds thought you were like the girlfriend of one of the players or something. Is that true? Yeah,
I turned up to a game and I was told to go round to the stands that girlfriends have to pay to go through. And I was like, no, I'm the actual manager. And I was just like, no, you really got to go inside. So the chairman was coming up behind me. He's like, no, these are our staff. That's my manager. And this is my video woman. They're coming through and then they're doing the game. And then obviously they stepped aside and let us come through, not thinking that we were manager and camera woman. And it's not until they actually see us out on the field doing what we went to the game to do that they're like, she knows what she's doing. She understands this game. And it's just like, oh, yeah, it kind of makes you laugh that just because I was female, you just didn't think I was going to actually understand and know how to run drills of the game and get the men's team up ready for the game that was just in front of them.
Yes. I think when I was reading the BBC article, Mary, one of the interesting points on it was when you said about your players in Peckham Town, the senior players that you coach, that there are no issues. They just see you as the manager and coach. There's no gender issue or anything like that. But I'm just wondering, when those kind of comments are made from opposition teams, how do your players react? Do you see any, is there a defence mechanism from your players to defend you, or is there any examples that when that has happened?
There hasn't been an issue where that's happened, because I think if I don't react to it, the players shouldn't react to it, and that's pretty much how I carry it forward. The players will reflect their manager. So if you've got a manager who's always shouting, always yelling, always being abusive, you're just giving your players that opportunity to do that. Yeah. And I won't give my players to do that. So I want them to go out and play the game. So they just see me crack on with things. So, right, guys, let's get ready. Let's start getting ready for this game. And they just switch on to what we've gone to the game to achieve and play a game of football and hopefully come away with 3 points. Yeah. If we get a draw, it's fantastic. If we lose the game, we just put a line underneath it and we start again for the following week. As of date, I've not had the reaction that the players have had to react to it. But if there was a situation, I'm fairly certain that all the players would react to anyone being aggressive or abusive towards me.
So you're both the gaffer to your squads. I would like to ask you both this question. I'll start with you, Mary, this time. Is there another football manager in the game that you've looked to for inspiration as a model manager?
I've not looked at any within the game. Obviously, I gained my license a couple of years ago, and I've been coaching for a while. But I just want to try and build my own style. And I think when you just look around at different things, you pick little things up. But I don't aspire to be anyone but myself, and try and just highlight me going forward, and try and bring out what the club is looking for in the players, and the ethos which the club hold for the players to go through, and when we're out in the field.
Okay, Peter, have you drawn any inspiration from any managers that our audience might have heard of?
Well, I love reading about coaches from all different types of sports. I mean, I don't read non-fiction, so it's all fiction and it's all sport. But when I'm in a certain mood, I love to read and watch YouTube clips on Brian Clough. Just, both because he makes me laugh. Some of his one-liners are brilliant. What a character he was. Then you've got, obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson. You want to learn. But as Mary said, you can go on. Everybody wants to play football like Pep Guardiola, but Pep Guardiola's a genius. I mean, let's face it. You have to forge, as Mary was saying, you have to forge your own style. You have to be true to yourself, because if you're not true to yourself and you're trying to be somebody else, regardless of whether it's another manager in the league or whether it's, Brian Clough or whatever, you're not being yourself, and therefore you're not authentic. And the players will see through that very, very quickly. And they need to see that you're being authentic and yourself to get that buyback, that kind of authenticity of it. But I love reading about other coaches, even John Wooden in basketball, UCLA, great UCLA coach in basketball, great coach. If you ever get to read about him, he's brilliant. Also Bill Walsh in NFL. So not to try and be like them, but to try and probably gather as much professional learning as I can.
Okay, and that idea of being true to yourself, Mary, is a very strong impression that you get when you are an outsider who looks at your career and your journey into management. Back in 2007, you captained, I think, the England side in the qualifying campaign into the World Cup in China. And what we're going to do now, Mary, is we're going to have a look at, you had an amazing pool game. You came out of the pool successfully. You did an amazing game against Japan. It was a 2-2 draw. So we're just going to stop now and have a quick look at the highlights of that game. So, Mary, what are your memories of that night against the Japanese team?
I just remember the free kick and being in the wall, and them taking that shot on, and the goals going in. There's that slight disappointment. You're in the World Cup, and it's like your opening game, and you want to go out there, you want to win. No one left anything out for chance. We started the game slowly, but we were all out there, we were all playing. And obviously we wanted to we were the fittest we'd ever been, or I was definitely the fittest I'd ever been, done into any competition, and the whole team has been working hard. And just the competitiveness and the skill levels that the Japanese hold, their little touches, their passing, their movement, just staying up with that and actually combating it and playing our style as well against them. they were the big parts of the game.
Yeah, and I think their equaliser came right at the death, didn't it? That second free kick.
It was late in the game it's coming, and obviously that's a bit of a sinker. And it's just a case of we're not going to go out and let another one go in. And we just stuck together and just tried to dig deep. Obviously, trying to get that next goal, and it weren't happening for us. But, that's how football goes. It's back and forth, and set pieces win a lot of games, especially at the top level. You see many games where the games are won on set pieces, and they were very clinical on their set pieces.
Yeah, and you had a great overall, a very successful group, because you got through into the quarters. I think, if I'm right, you were the only team that took points off Germany. Was it 0-0 in the group, and they went on to win the tournament? They beat Brazil in the final.
Yeah. That was a very good game. That was a hard-fought game, and actually, I played right back in that game. The manager decided we're going to have a little change around. We're going to try and put players with players and up pace with pace. And obviously played me right back and played a very central with Bayern and each central. And it was a strong game in there.
Then I think it was the Americans in the quarterfinal, and they were, by that stage, they were full-time professionals, and tournament over at that point. And since then, Mary, the whole of the professional game is almost unrecognisable from 20 years ago. But the women's game in particular, when you look at the women's game now, what are some of the things that strike you about it most as a former player?
The advertisement of it, and actually the promotion of the women's game, is fundamental to the growth of it and how they publicise it. I can remember coming through the game, and they obviously wanted to, when you've done your little interviews or you went for photo shoots, they wanted to dress you up in your dress so people see you as female in dresses, other than just seeing you as sportswomen going out and playing a sport, where now they actually take you as they see you, and you are a sports person at the elite level, competing at the top of the table. Obviously the finance coming into the game now, they've got so much sponsor coming through, which is enabling them to be able to pay the women a decent salary to go out and perform and train on a daily basis and make football their focal point in their life. They haven't got to worry about trying to juggle a 9 to 5 or evening work alongside playing football. So the full focus is on going out on a weekend and performing. And obviously midweek as well, you have that now.
Yes.
They have their midweek games just like the men.
Yes.
But the strides it's taken to go forward and to create the women's game as it is, in England now we've got players all over the world playing. Where in 2007, England was probably the last place where anyone in the world would come and play, because there was no money in the game. But now, like I'm saying, they've got players from America, Japan, all of Europe, actually coming in and playing the game, which is fantastic for the growth of the women's game.
Yeah, and the contrast back in 2007. I think the players. I mean, I read that Alex Scott had to take unpaid leave of absence from her job to go. You guys basically had to almost fund yourselves to go to the World Cup. It's incredible sitting here in 2021 to think that's only 15 years ago. It's just amazing to think of the contrast between now and then.
No, it is a big contrast, because I can always remember in 2007 would I be taking my children with me to China, and I was like, no, the best option for me, so that I ain't got to focus on them and worry about them, would be to leave them at home. But when that question was put forward, we were told that we would have to pay for them ourselves, and that the men pay for their families to go to any competitions that their wives or children go to, not reflecting on the fact that the men get paid thousands to be playing football, where we wasn't. We had our jobs, which was just that enough to secure ourselves in our lifestyles we had at home, and that football was just a passion that all of us played, and we were all fortunate enough to be at the top of our game and playing at the top of the table.
Yeah, Mary, there's a theme around equality that seems to run all the way through your life. You're like a touchstone for so many issues that are really important in society. And back when you became the captain of the Lionesses, you were recognised as the first black women's football captain in English football history. Was that something that you were very aware of at the time, or now when you look back, does it seem to have even greater significance?
It has great significance to me, but that wasn't made aware to me, believe it or not, until last year when there was Black History Month, and Sky was doing a piece on the women's game, and obviously black women in sport, and they got in touch with me, and they were the ones that actually let me know that I was the first black female captain for England, and that was in 2003. I became captain, but it wasn't until last year, which is what 2019, that I actually become aware that I've actually made that mark in history, and that will stay with me forever. So my grandkids will be able to look at that and say that my nan, my great nan was the first black female England captain.
Yeah. Mary, there'll be a statue somewhere in your honour someday.
Peckham.
I hope. The Euros are on at the moment. Again, before the interview, we were talking about some of the recent England performances. But one of the themes at the Euros that I would like to ask you and Peter about is that taking the knee has become a big talking point at these European Championships. And I want to maybe start with you, Mary. When you look at the kind of the controversy and debate around that, what's your reaction as a Londoner, as a former captain of your country, the first black captain, to all of that taking the knee debate?
I think taking the knee it's a mark. It's for people's eyes to be open that there's a big problem out there in society, and you just want people to be aware of that. It's Black Lives Matter is obviously why that knee is being taken, and it's not to say that other lives don't matter, because they do. But right now, it's Black lives that are getting the downfall of things, and people need to see that it's happening not just in England, not just in America, but it's all over the world. And it's for people to recognise black people as equals. We're not that different. We all bleed the same at the end of the day. We all strive and try and reach the same targets. We want to achieve and be better people than what people say we can be. And it's just for people eyes to be open that in society we're seen to be putting things in boxes, and you've got to sit in certain boxes and have certain things ticked to be appreciative in life, when it shouldn't be. Everyone should be seen as an equal and be allowed to step forward regardless of your race or your gender. But obviously that doesn't happen, and obviously that is why the knee is being taken. But more things need to be done for that to be improved, because obviously taking the knee ain't a sole thing out there, and things are pretty much still the same, apart from more people are aware of what's going on.
Yeah, Peter, part of your day job is you're a history teacher. Has this been something you've had a chance to talk to your own pupils about in school? Absolutely.
I teach in what's called an integrated college in Northern Ireland, which obviously was set up because of the historical
now we've got to explain what that means to Mary.
Oh, well, an integrated college in Northern Ireland, Mary, is that both Catholic children from a Catholic background and a Protestant background, and children from other faith backgrounds and none, are educated on site together in the classrooms, which probably sounds maybe quite strange for you, but given our past, only 8% of school students in 2021 actually go to integrated schools. So 92% of our young people still go to segregated schools, either a state school or perceived Protestant school and a Roman Catholic faith school. So, when I'm speaking to young people in my school, we have students from all different races and backgrounds and religious beliefs. And it is live. And I think what Mary is saying there is very important, that we shouldn't be allowed to get, for the naysayers or the people who are trying to bring in other guises to taking the knee, to hijack the symbolism of it. It is a symbol of change. And the fact that we're still talking about it since the whole Black Lives Matter movement started with the death of George Floyd, I think that's testament to the movement. And it's actually testament that we need to keep going. We are nowhere near the equality or in all the institutions in the different sectors that's needed. So therefore, these high-profile footballers should take a stand, and we should back it at all stages. And I must say, I have to pay testament to the likes of Sky. I think Sky have been excellent in their coverage of it, and having the Gary Nevilles and the Graham Souness and the Alex Scotts coming out and promoting that. But it's very important that that Black Lives Matter and taking the knee continues the way it's going, and it's not allowed to be hijacked. So it's live for young people, and I think when it's live for young people, it's pertinent and it's relevant, and that's good.
Yeah, and I think since 2016, Mary and Peter, when Colin Kaepernick, the NFL player, took the knee, you've got soccer players at the forefront of social justice issues like Marcus Rashford, and Megan Rapinoe.
You also think back, Hugh, to 1968 in the Olympics in Mexico when the two black American sprinters with the black gloves. I mean, that symbol is still, it's like the Che Guevara T-shirt. That symbol of the two runners. Muhammad Ali. This in 20 years, 30 years, children in schools will be learning about the Black Lives Movement and footballers and sports people taking the knee. So very, very important that it continues. Yes,
and it's interesting at the moment the Olympic movement are suggesting that athletes shouldn't make any form of protest at the games in Tokyo, and I think there's little chance of the athletes, thankfully, paying attention to that. Now, I'm very aware of time, Mary, and there's a couple of other things I'd like to come to. We've still got you. I know your dad is from St. Lucia, but our audience would also be very interested to know that your mum is from
Kerry.
And you haven't been over yet to her home place.
I haven't been over yet, but it is on my to-go places. And
you need to get over, Mary. It's beautiful.
I will get a chance to come over and have a look at the lovely Greenlands, which my mum is always chatting about. So I will come over there and just have a little look around it, just to see how my mum grew in the big country out there.
Yeah, well, we look forward to you coming over, and we'd love to host you here. There's some pretty nice places in Northern Ireland as well, Mary. So maybe after this interview, we'll start to plan this visit, and we'll get you hooked in, and you and Peter could run a joint session with Peter's team.
I'm game for that.
That would be fantastic.
Absolutely, I'd love it.
Now listen, you're both managers, and we'll have to get this into this interview. In recent times, you've both had considerable cup success. Mary, you within the first year of taking over the team, your club reached the final of the London Senior Trophy, and you won the game. It was first senior, and also the first big trophy that Peckham Town FC had won. I think is that right?
Yeah, I mean they've won small cups, but since they started up in 1982, they've been looking to try and get this trophy, and it's just eluded them year after year. They've got close to it. They've got to the quarterfinals. They've got to the semis, but they've never got to the final roll of the dice, let alone pick the cup up. And in my first year, obviously, our season got halted because of COVID. But because all the cup games had been played, the London FA decided that all the finals would get played once things were lifted. So just before our second season was to kick off, we played the final of that cup, and lo and behold, Peckham Town went out and won that. And it was just after the game had finished, we had a couple of fans, our men's supporters, come around and said, Mary, you're the first female to take the senior men's team to a cup final and win it. And I was like, I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll do a little bit more research, and if you find out that's true, that's fantastic. I'll happily take that and put that up there. Other things that have come my way. It's another great achievement for me.
And I want to ask Peter this question too, but is winning as a manager, does it feel very different from winning as a player? Because you've enjoyed both.
It has there's the same, obviously that element of winning is, you can't put words to that, that excitement, that run that you get going through you. But when you're on the bench, there's nothing you can really do apart from talk to your players and hope that they're listening and taking on board the stuff that you see, because what you see as a manager is totally different to what the players are seeing in front of them. I myself know that as a player, stuff my manager be saying, I'd be looking at the game and thinking, I don't see that picture. No, I can't see that run, or I didn't understand that ball was going to go in that direction. But when you're out and when you're the manager and you're watching, you can actually see the way people are going to line up and how they're going to drive and runners off the ball. And so you're just trying to shout, being an extra player for your players, that they can pick up on these other movements, and that worked that night, because we hadn't had many friendlies coming through to that final. We'd had loads of training and had some in-house games to get us prepared for it, and went out and done the job on the night. It was fantastic.
Yeah, we watched the highlights of that game earlier, Peter and I, and it was a nail biter, Mary. It was brilliant. Crazy. It was so tight. Peter, your success as a Queen, you've had a couple of great cup campaigns, the Intermediate Cup victors a few years ago at Windsor Park. What's your memories of that game?
I suppose I got a couple of minutes to think about this answer, unlike Mary. I remember I was at the Champions League final in 2013 at Wembley, and it was the game, 2011, and it was the game that Barcelona beat Manchester United and played them off the pitch. And I was lucky enough to be at the game that night. And I remember after it, when Barcelona lifted the Champions League, Guardiola was crying, uncontrollably crying. And I remember thinking, goodness me, that's a bit strange to see that. And now, not equating our victory in 2018 to the Champions League in 2011, but I remember when I saw our captain with the guys lifting the trophy at the National Stadium, I wasn't crying, but it was incredibly emotional experience for me, and much more emotional than I've ever felt in winning anything as a player, because I think and Mary will probably attest to this as well, you're managing everything, you're sorting out everything is your responsibility. And then when it actually, all of the hard work and all the stress and everything that you do comes together on one night like that, and the cup final with Peckham, it is an incredibly emotional, quasi-spiritual experience, without getting any emotional myself now. Yeah. But that's what I felt, that kind of, like when the guys are lifting the trophy, the managers stand to the side, we stand to the side, we're not even in the pictures, and you're just watching your team lifted, and I could then, relate to Guardiola, now much higher level, but that emotional attachment that you have, and I think as Mary would agree as well, they are so fleeting in your career, those moments. There's a hell of a lot more downs than there is ups, but all of the downs put together, they don't come anywhere near that one up or two or three ups that you might get in your career. And I think as sports people, that's why we keep coming back to it and love it.
Mary, Peter and I are involved in Queen Sport with our athletes across the sports they tend to be between 18 and 22, 23. What do you say to young sportsmen and women now that in terms of encouragement to help them manage sort of the challenges of growing up and of trying to compete and be the best?
Be realistic and honest to yourself, You're going to get many barriers put up in front of you. A lot of them you'll be able to knock down if you've got that will to go forward, but not all of them will come down for you because there are limits there for you. But only you know your limits. You get a lot of people telling you can't do something, but you've got to have that will and that drive to push yourself forward. And when you know it's enough for you, only you yourself know that. You can't let other people tell you that and put you down. You just got to keep driving forward until you hit that barrier for yourself and realise that's as far as you can go. But don't let other people put them barriers up for you and stop you before you're ready to be stopped.
Wow. And Mary, as you drive forward into the new season, I know your pre-season, like Peter's, is about to start, and hopefully we'll get a full season of football next year. But when you look at the next few years of your life, what are you dreaming about in sporting terms?
Well, for me, I'd like to just climb up 2 levels to maybe step 6, step 5 even with Peckham Town, just to see him climb up the football pyramid, just to get to that level. To play in the FA bar would be amazing. But obviously, we've got a lot of barriers trying to move forward. We play in the middle of Dulwich, and we need lights at our ground, we need hard standings at our ground. But we've got a lot of neighbours that doesn't want that to happen. So unless we can try and get a ground share with our local club to help us move forward, the likelihood is we're going to be stuck playing step 7. But my hopes are that within this coming season, we will get some movement with the council and the landowners, be able to get some permission to put up floodlights and a hard standing so that Peckham Town can move forward, and it'd be great to move forward with them. And also looking into the women's game, can I break into that? And can I do a job within the women's game like I did as a player, but on the other side?
Okay, Mary, it's hard to imagine anything stopping you when you put your mind to it. When we look at your sporting career so far, Peter, what's your dreams over the next couple of years as a manager?
With Queens, we have just recently got into the Championship, which is the second level of Northern Irish football. So I suppose short term, stabilise ourselves. It's a difficult league. It's a punishing, uncompromising league. With some big clubs in it, big fan bases, big budgets. So we have to be competitive in that and stabilise ourselves in the league. Long term then, build on that, try and break into the top half. And I suppose the goal would be to one season get into the Premier Division in Northern Irish football.
If you can't see it in your mind and you can't believe it, it's
Absolutely.
not going to happen. But Mary, this is what I see going forward personally. I see you and Peter sharing a pitch at Upper Malone in Belfast with the Queen's football team, where the two of you are taking our squads for some training, and we get the chance to sit down with a wider group of Queen's staff and players and listen to your experience and stories, tell you some of ours, and let's just cement this relationship going forward. It's been an absolute privilege to have you join us for this programme. We wish you well for the season ahead, and be assured Peter and I and Queen Sport will be in touch with you going forward. So thank you very much indeed, Mary, Phillip. Thank you indeed.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's been amazing, and that'd be great to be able to come out, meet up with you guys and get some coach on that field. It'd be an amazing thing to do.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And
thanks, Mary.
We'll let you go now, Mary, and we'll close the show. So thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you soon. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you very
Pleasure
much.
meeting you. All the best.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peter, what do you make of Mary? That was some story in sport, isn't it?
Well, even watching her years ago and then reading, doing a bit of background reading on her, very impressive, but even more impressive when you actually listen to her and listen to her journey, and very inspirational figure, and very. I think what sets her out is her humility, She's a very humble person with the accolades and the achievements that she's had in her career and the challenges. And she didn't speak too much about the barriers or the challenges in her life and in her career. But by goodness, I'm sure they were big barriers and big challenges to get over. So really inspirational and a pleasure just to listen to.
Yeah, I thought her humility was striking. It's an amazing career.
Yeah,
all those years in the professional game. Now, I was at Old Trafford once in my life. I went to watch a game when I think my son passed the 11 plus, and it was my big treat to him. I was a Man United fan, but we went to Old Trafford. What hasn't come out in the interview is you were involved with Manchester United for a considerable time in your earlier career. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing there and what you got from that experience. Yeah,
a good friend of mine, one of my old coaches from back in my youth days, is a man called Jim Lawler. Yes. Good friend of mine, one of my best friends now still. Jim actually is the chief scout of Man United and has been for many years. So back in 2009, I was still playing for Queens and a relatively young teacher, and an opportunity came up at the Man United Academy in Northern Ireland for a coach and also a scout. So I jumped at the opportunity of going around the country scouting all the best young players from ages 10 to 13, and then the very best of those players, if they were lucky enough and good enough, myself and a man called Tony Coulter would have brought them over to Carrington for trials. So you think about all the Northern Ireland players that have been associated with Man United over the years.
Many players.
Many of them have come through the Man United Academy within Northern Ireland. Johnny Evans, Craig Cathcart, Steve Davis, the list goes on. David Healy probably, the Linfield manager at present. So I did that for 9 years and absolutely loved it. But my time was becoming precious. I'd got married and, what have you, and I was still coaching at Queen's, which takes up a lot of my time, plus career progression in my job. So I'd done 9 years. Youth coaching's not my passion in terms of sport. It's senior coaching. So I had left my my print in that and decided that I loved it, but it was time for me to move on.
And you love the job, and you love Manchester United as well, I believe. That's your club, isn't it?
When I was working for them, I had to say I loved them, but they're my second team, let's just say. Spurs are my first.
Spurs are your first team.
Yeah.
All right.
Unfortunately.
You kept that quiet. It's just struck me too that we didn't do this when Mary was talking, but we've got some amazing. Well, the Northern Ireland women's team qualifying for the next European Championship is a landmark achievement in Northern Ireland football as well. So how do you see international football progressing here over the next couple of years in terms of prospects for both the men and women?
I think it was tremendous. I mean, the coverage that the women's team has got, and Mary commented on how the women's game has developed a lot through the media and the coverage of it, and I think that's the same in Northern Ireland. I don't think the ordinary punter in Northern Ireland knew an awful lot about the Northern Ireland women's team until Kenny Shields. Kenny Shields, quite a famous manager within the Northern Ireland football scene. He took over, raised the profile, the results started to get better. And then the BBC started to stream the matches and put them on BBC One and BBC Two, and for them to qualify for the European Championships. I mean, I felt like it was. I remember rushing back from coaching that night
to watch.
I remember rushing back to the house to get on to the BBC iPlayer to see the game, the second leg against Ukraine.
Yes.
And I remember cheering. My wife coming in saying, "Who has scored?" And I said, "Northern Ireland have scored their second goal and they're through the European Championships." And both of us were like cheering, and that would have been unheard of.
Yes.
That would have been unheard of 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So both men and women's international football, I think we're on the way up. I think the standard of coaching, the professionalism involved with Northern Irish football now, even at Premier League level with all the full-time clubs coming into the league, will only benefit the senior team. I know that the IFA are doing a lot of good work at the underage groups. Mm-hmm. I think they've started to pilot our young players who will go across the water at 17, 18. They're starting to live in residentials at the University of Ulster to prepare them for full-time football, because the problem there was that in the past a lot of our young players were going across, getting contracts, getting scholarships, but getting terribly homesick, and they weren't prepared.
Coming back.
And the IFA are putting plans in place there. So I think the future of Northern Irish football and Irish football is in good hands.
We're coming towards the end of this interview, Peter, and you'll have noticed I've managed to get this far without mentioning that game. The one that you don't want your whole coaching career at Queen's to be defined by. We've got to include it as a memory. So the year before last, 5th round of the Irish Cup, you draw superpower of Northern Irish football, Linfield at the Dub, and you win 2-1. Described as one of the biggest shocks in the history of Irish football. When you look back at that day, tell us what springs to mind as your first memories of the day.
The first memories of the day, I mean, I would be lying to say that the preparation for it was like every other game. Obviously, it wasn't. The players were up to high dough in terms of the excitement and also their nerves. And I myself and James and Neil, we understood that. We understood that, if we don't get these players right back down to earth, we could go out here and be 2-0 down after 10 minutes, and then it's like popping a balloon. Mm-hmm. But I must say, and I said this afterwards in some of the interviews, I was incredibly relaxed during the 90 minutes, because we had put a game plan in place, and it worked a treat. Now it wasn't like a tactical master plan. It was a very simple tactical plan put to the players. But they're the best. The simple plans executed expertly by your players are the best plans. And at no stage of the game, even when we were 2-1 up and Jimmy Gallagher scored the header that was offside, we had actually worked on that on the Thursday night, keeping a high line from free kicks, because we know Linfield are brilliant at set pieces. So that wasn't by chance. When the linesman's flag went up, myself and my coaches were like, "Oh, great!
Yeah, fair enough.
Great! They did what we asked them to do." Mm-hmm. And I've had other games for Queensborough have been more nervous, hanging on. I mean, I think we were pretty comfortable. You deserve to win the game. We deserved to win, and
we
didn't sit. Yeah. What I loved about it, and what I said to the players was, we didn't sit back. We played the way we want to play, which is on the front foot, and we put it up to Linfield. And Linfield didn't play particularly poorly. You know, people say, oh, Linfield must have been incredibly poor that day. They weren't incredibly poor. Now, a big part of it was bringing them to the dub. That was a big decision.
Getting them away from Windsor.
We had quite a bit of pressure. We had quite a bit of pressure to take the financial buck, you know, take the quick buck.
Go down to Lisbon Road.
And it's like, no, sport's more than that. There's an integrity to sport.
And is that I'm wondering, is there a sense that at Queen's football there's a particular brand or approach or ethos that's distinct from all the fellow competitors in your league?
I think the ethos, obviously, at Queen's is that we're a student club. We have a unique, recruitment of players. But I mean, the great thing about football, Hugh, and I always say it to the players, is there's many ways to skin a cat. And if you want to play long ball and put it into corners and scrap and play off second balls and be physical, like, good luck to you. You can win a football game like that. There's no rule in the rule book to say you can't win football games like that. However, managers who are worth their salt understand that you have to work with the cohort you have, and therefore we have a young team. Our profile of our team is young, and they're fit, and they're talented, and they're technically good. So why not use that? Why not use that to our benefit? And if we go away to the likes of the Welders or the Duns or wherever, Dergview, we might get beat, and the chances are we probably will get beat on a Tuesday night away to Dergview, because on a wee tight pitch, which is a bog, might not suit us. But when they come to Queen's, we can play our game.
You've got a lovely arena there now to play good football.
Oh, it's the best facilities in Northern Ireland. Finally,
Peter, you look forward to life beyond managing at Queen's. What would you aspire to?
At the minute, I don't.
Okay.
I don't, because I'm not a career football manager. I have my own career. I'm a teacher. I work in education. That's my career. My passion is coaching at Queen's. I've been at Queen's since I was 19. I'm 40 years of age now. It's 21 years of my life. More than 50% of my life has been invested
in the university team.
In the university team, but more importantly in the people at the club. And to me, that's when people say to me, oh, you've done this, oh, you must be. I'm like, I have no interest. If somebody wants to come along, and offer me jobs, that's up to themselves. But I tell you what, it would take a really, really good job and a really good offer to get me away from this club.
Okay, well, that's some answer. So, Peter Thompson for Glentoran, and you heard it here first. Peter, we're glad to have you, and thanks
so
much for being our guest today, along with Mary.
Pleasure.
And all the best for the pre-season. And here's hoping that every weekend there'll be games at the Dub for the foreseeable future.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Hugh. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Peter. One of the things that's important to us at Queen's is honouring sporting greats from the past. And in the next academic year, that exclusive club will be added to with a set of new names. Have a look at this film. So thank you for joining us across our 4 interviews with Rebecca, Ewan, with Mary and with Peter. And I hope that wherever you're watching and listening from, you've taken some inspiration from the stories across those 4 remarkable careers. Have a great summer. Have a great competitive and sporting season in 21-22.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we come to the end of another sporting season here at Queen's. It's been a tough year, a really tough year for all of us. I know that Queen's Sport has overcome some particular challenges. So I'd like to pay tribute to the staff, coaches and volunteers within Queen's Sport, led by Liz McLaughlin, who have excelled in supporting our students despite the many challenges they've faced. I would also like to acknowledge the valuable contribution that the wider community plays in supporting sporting activity at Queen's. In addition, I want to thank our wonderful alumni groups who support students in so many ways. These include coaching and mentoring, and the many businesses who invest in our students and clubs through generous sponsorship and support. We continue to be inspired by the sporting achievements of our students and our graduates. Some of our elite athlete programme scholars deserve a special mention for being brilliant ambassadors for the university recently. Ross Corrigan won a bronze medal at the World Under-23 Rowing Championships as part of an Irish quad. And Conor McKee has started the Under-20s Six Nations in fine form at scrum half for Ireland. While both Erin Getty and Jessica McMaster have just had a successful development series representing Ireland against GB hockey. Last week, viewers of Queen's Sporting Conversations heard from Queen's graduate and former elite athlete programme scholar Rebecca Edwards. Rebecca will take her place on Team GB's Women's 8 at the Tokyo Olympics this month, a fantastic achievement. Rebecca had never rowed before coming to Queen's, but followed our athlete pathway, achieving steady progress with the support of dedicated staff here. She credits Queen's rowing for instilling the values of teamwork, determination and perseverance. She considers that these were key in her making the steps into the GB team. Her diligence and work ethic is an outstanding example of what is possible for a young athlete when they receive the right support. We send Rebecca our best wishes as she heads to Tokyo with the team, and we look forward to cheering them on. The resilience Rebecca has shown should inspire us all, even in difficult times. I'm confident that we'll emerge stronger than ever in the next academic year, demonstrating that resilience, ambition and community spirit that has always characterised our sporting community here at Queen's. For many years, employers have told us how much they value the skills that our graduates who have taken part in competitive sport bring to the workplace. If ever we needed a reminder of the benefits that sport gives us all in terms of health and well-being, social interaction and united communities, the pandemic has certainly given us that. We hope that in the next academic year we'll start to see the benefits of a much needed return to normality for our sports teams, driving that culture of excellence through sport and well-being to positively impact the lives of students, staff and the